Hi, hello everyone. More people have joined in. We're just waiting for a minute more. In the meantime, Mehak, how can I send a message to the entire group? Mehak and Ishita, if you can help me out here, because it'll just send out to the host and panelists if I share it right now. We're at 20 people. A minute more, I think, should be fine. Hi everyone. So we'll just begin in a few seconds. In the meantime, if you can fill up a form that you will see in the webinar chat box, that'll be really helpful for us. Um, this is so that we can just record whoever's attended and send across some information about the Badruka School of Management to everyone who's attended. So my colleague Ishita will just send out a Google form in the chat box. We'll really appreciate if you can fill that up in the meantime. Okay, so in the meantime, I think we can begin and you'll just get the form in the chat box for everyone to fill it out. Um, Thank you for joining us today for the Faculty Masterclass Series. My name is Srishti Paliwal, and I'm a part of the admissions and outreach team of the Badruka School of Management. As you all know, we have Mr. Ankur Kulshrestha, who's joined us today. He is a visiting faculty at the Badruka School of Management. Um the school will start uh, 29th July onwards, 2024. It's located in Hyderabad, Mitchell, and our admission rounds are open. This is just an attempt from us to share with you the expertise of our faculty, and it's also a chance for anyone and everyone to come join in and learn some new skills, to learn what's new in the management landscape. So just a little bit about Ankur, and then he'll come in and introduce himself. Ankur is comes from a really solid finance background. He did his BCom from SRCC in Delhi University and holds a CFA from the CFA Institute in the US. He's done his CA from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and he's currently visiting faculty at multiple institutions, including Ashoka, including Anant, and other such institutes. I will let Ankur take over from here, and he can share in detail about his background, teaching experience, and take over this faculty masterclass. Thank you, everyone. And I'm just sharing the link in the chat box. Please do fill that out for us. Thank you. Over to you, Ankur.
Thanks very much, Rishti. I hope I'm audible. Can somebody confirm that?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, what an amazing time to have a discussion on this topic of geopolitical disruptions. I was reading through a report by McKinsey, one of the global thought leaders, and they very categorically mentioned that the top two risks that all the capital markets across the world that face in the next 5 years is going to be: first is the climate risk. We see that there are droughts everywhere, the climate is changing, the temperature is rising, etc. And equally important is a geopolitical disruption. So I must congratulate the program team at Badruka School of Management for picking up a very, very relevant topic. And I'm humbled to be part of their esteemed and very, very ornamented constellation of faculty by teaching a corporate finance course there. Well, everybody, today's session is going to be, more like a discussion where, I will have some content, of course, to kind of give some structure to the whole thing. But feel free to stop me, anywhere where you think you have a point to contribute. Your questions are welcome on the chat window. I'm sure you have the access to that. In case you have a pleasant background, you can also kind of raise your hands and we can invite you to, ask a query in the audio form as well. So, Srishti had given a very nice, background. I mean, these introductions are created to make us look bigger than what we are. I think in the simplest form, I'm a fellow who is super excited by the amazing opportunities India has to offer. I've been part of the finance fraternity for last 18 years, since 2005. And I am absolutely amazed at how things have progressed. 2005 was a very, very different year than 2015. That was a very different year than 2023. And I'm sure that, 2030 is going to be much, much, much different than what you and I can see and witness, right now. So everybody, it's a sea of opportunities. It's just that you have to be at the right time, at the right place to be able to, capture that. So in context to the topic today, the geopolitical disruptions, we are going to kind of set the base, and in doing that, I would need everybody's help. Okay, so allow me to begin by asking a question. Because many of you might be looking at financial markets or economy or these capital markets and very, very heavy words for the first time. I just wanted to kind of understand from you, uh, can you differentiate between a financial market and an economy? What, according to you, is a difference? So let's see who has to contribute. So everybody on your chat windows, let's see who will give the first answer. What is the difference between a financial market and an economy? Let's see where the answer comes from. Many times we think that the two are same and common. Well, in many cases, they might be used interchangeably, which should not ideally be the case. Let's see who is going to be the first person to answer. Yeah, and you can post your queries or questions or comments on the chat window or the Q&A in case you have access to that. Okay, everybody. So financial markets, yeah, absolutely right. So we see some responses scrolling up. So financial markets is a subset of economy. Okay, so absolutely rightly put. So we could have asked this question in a different fashion, that between an economy and a financial market, which one or the scope of which one is much bigger. So absolutely rightly pointed out, the scope of economy is much, much, much bigger. So if I have to present it in some kind of a graphical fashion, the bigger universe is your economy, where you have multiple entities operating, which includes your households, which is you and me. It includes businesses such as, an Asian Paint and HDFC Bank. At an international level, you have an Apple, Google, Toyota, Samsung, and companies like those. Then obviously there are governments also that are required so that things go as per plan. And then for every country, there is an export and an import sector, which also contributes significantly to the overall economy's growth. Just a point in case, uh, it might come to you as a surprise, that India's, which looks like a domestic consumption story, the export contribute almost 18% to the overall GDP. Can you imagine? And we always thought, and you see, that's where the numbers come into the picture. That's where the data has all the power. And that's what we say, the capital markets and finance is so amazing, that we always thought, and at least I can share my bias. I had always had an idea that China is largely an export-oriented market, almost like 35% of their overall contribution to the GDP comes from export. But that's not true. They are also under 20% as we speak. So China also has become a domestic consumption story. So uh, in terms of the contribution to the overall economy, the India and China are pretty much on the same footing, of course, with a shade of difference in terms of the contribution by the exports. Amazing. China was once upon a time like 34%, but that was long ago, 2005. But today you can imagine that the export share of China is also going down. A little bit of that is contributed also by the geopolitical disturbance. Okay, and I'm sure that you are quite self-aware, and you must be reading news for the last few months, and let's say for more than that. India also had a rebuff against China like a couple of years ago, where suddenly the Indian government said, let's boycott Chinese goods. So that happened around Diwali time, where even the idols that we buy, the Ganesh ji and Lakshmi ji, generally used to come from China. So they said that, hey, that's not done. Somebody is manufacturing our idols and selling it to us and making money, etc., etc. So one of the reasons I was saying. So coming back to the main point is the external factor, the external sector contributing to it. In the meantime, Kumar Virendra Singh has given a fantastic answer that financial market means where the activity is happening, like buying and selling. And economy means a result of that market, like benefit and loss. Virendra, there is a bit of a change that I would like to make here. What you're referring to as a financial market is actually the economy where the activity is happening, buying and selling. Okay, so you see, the more you open up, the faster you figure out where you have been going wrong, and faster your personal growth will happen. So thank you very much, Virendra, for posting this point, and I encourage everybody in this room to kind of be very frank and about the opinions that you have. So everybody, like Virendra said, economy is a place where all the activities happen. Players like households, governments, companies interact with each other. So you can imagine somebody going to the office, getting some salary. So there is a buy and sell here of the service. You go out, buy some grocery. There is a buy and sell of some goods, okay, some tangible goods. But to be able to do that, you need some flow of money in this whole game. This flow of money is where your capital markets contribute. Capital market overall is a place where the money management of all the other players happen, not only in terms of the buying, but also in terms of investing. So if, let's say, one has to buy a house, you need some kind of a funding support. That's where banks come into the picture. That's part of the financial market. So therefore, financial market provides a lot of lubrication in the overall economy to make sure that the players are able to achieve their individual objectives. Okay, take example of companies. So let's say Mahindra and Mahindra. Now it's a fantastic group, doing crazy things in automobile sector, from tractor to almost a passenger vehicle, making fantastic Scorpios, Boleros, and now XUVs. Now, they also need some funding to open up their factory. So they can raise the money from, let's say, through an instrument called as an equity or through an instrument called as a debt. All of those instruments are part of your financial market. So while you see that financial market generally has three compartments, and of course, there is a bit of an overlap here. And the idea is really not to kind of, in the next 45 minutes, to kind of delve much deeper into the financial market, but just to give you a rough idea about what that is. Okay. And thank you very much, Vidya and Ganesh, for those answers. Ganesh says that financial market facilitate the interaction between those who need the capital and those who have it. So Ganesh, it looks like that you stole my thunder. My next slide is exactly going to talk about that. So I'll come back to you, Ganesh, on that. Vidya also makes a fantastic point. It says the financial market refers to a platform, great word, where buyer and seller trade financial instruments like stock, bonds, and commodity. Fabulous answer, Vidya. That's exactly what we have been discussing. Okay. A very interesting word that perhaps sometimes we generally do not use in our parlance is the intermediary. Okay. Now let's call it, use a loose word called as a broker. Now, broker is an intermediary, everybody, and financial market has tons and tons of brokers. A bank is a broker, intermediary. An insurance firm is an intermediary. A mutual fund is an intermediary. All these are institutions which help us, what Ganesh has been telling us. And that's where, Ganesh, is your slide. I would like to remember this as your slide. And very beautifully, Ganesh has explained that it's actually a bridge between those who have surplus versus those who have deficit. So it's a bridge through which the money flows. And anybody can be on the either side. So it's not necessarily that only individuals will be on the surplus side. Individual could be on the surplus as well as on the borrowing side. Let me give an example. So imagine, let's say, somebody working at a salary of, let's say, 50,000 rupees a month. And out of that, the daily expenses, household expenses, here and there, little bit of entertainment, grocery, house rent, etc., is 40,000. So there is a surplus of 10,000 rupees a month times 12, roughly 1.2 lakh rupees a year that fellow is able to save. What do you think that fellow is going to do? Well, not every time you want to spend money, etc., go on a vacation, etc. So that fellow decided to give that money to the bank where the fellow had a saving bank account. So let's say the saving bank account typically has a rate of interest of 3.5%. Let's say 3% for sake of clarity. Now, the bank has received some 1.2 lakh rupees from a fellow on which the bank will pay 3% to that fellow. Okay. Now, bank is not going to keep that. Now, bank is part of this bridge, this transmission mechanism, sometimes we use the word, and the bank is going to give this dollar to somebody. Let us say Asian Paint wants to open up another factory and they approach the bank for some kind of a loan. Now, the bank is going to give a loan, let us say at an 11%. So you see, loan is a financial instrument which prevails on the bridge, which allows the bank to channelize the dollars given by a household to Asian Paint. So the dollar now resides with Asian Paint. And now Asian Paint is going to spend that dollar to open up the factory, make some inventory, buy, sell some amazing paints. And then perhaps the same fellow is going to buy that paint. So you see, it's a circular function where financial market has been able to channelize the money. So that's what you see, people. Financial market is so crucial to look at and for the functioning and the smooth functioning of the economy that way. Okay. I want to, before we kind of delve to the main concept, the topic, sometimes the word capital market, financial market looks very complicated. So I just want to kind of decode the whole thing. Okay. I'm giving you 6 parameters. Okay. I'm giving you 6 different instruments which trade in financial market. So some of you would have already, known these words. Equity. Okay, the share market is so popular these days. There's so much fluctuation happening. Day before yesterday, suddenly the HDFC Bank's equity prices went down by 8.5%. So that was equity, the ownership. Okay. Then there is another instrument called as bonds, also called as debt. Okay. And there are different versions to it. You don't have to worry about any of that today. It's just that We are referring to, the second very famous instrument out here. Then there are derivatives. Now that's where the advanced instrument starts to come in. Then you have real estate, the house prices, commercial estate prices, agricultural land prices, etc. Then you have rupee versus dollar rate at your play. And then, of course, you have commodity prices such as an oil, such as a gold, such as metals, etc., etc. Okay, so all of that in sum total. And of course, I am leaving out, for example, cryptocurrencies out of that. So I'm not kind of going too much in advance, but keeping it very, very simply that out of these six, everybody, my question to you is, if one has to really look at the financial markets are going well, if somebody says that, my capital markets of the country are doing pretty well, which out of these six must be rising for you to conclude that the capital markets of that country are doing well? So you can answer by writing the number in the chat window. You get what my question is? Out of these six parameters that you see, if I have to say that my capital markets are doing well, they're healthy, which out of these six must be rising? That's my question. Let's see who all get it right. So far you've had fantastic, responses. Uh, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Out of these, which all parameters should be rising? So I have the first question, first response coming from Ganesh. Thank you very much. So Ganesh says only equity. Ganesh, are you sure that no other instrument should be rising? Kavita, on the other hand, believes in foreign exchange rates. Litika as well says foreign exchange rate. Okay, fantastic, fantastic. And people, you can also have more than one, points in your answer. So, for example, Ganesh might want to say 1/2, so 1, 2, so that kind of a thing. Um, Although Ganesh is pretty confident of what he's saying that, no, I think it's only equity. uh, Vijay also mentions equity and equity only, and Vidya also mentions equity. So clearly it looks like, everybody, that equity is a clear winner. Okay, and quite rightly so. Nobody likes volatility. Volatility is uncertainty, so derivative volatility should ideally be low. Similarly, credit spread. Credit spread signify the risk. So to explain the credit spread in very, very simple terms, if Central Bank of India, while giving a loan, would given a loan to Ratan Tata, a very, very, very safe customer, at, for example, 6%, when you go and take the same loan from the same bank of the same amount, the bank charges 8%. So this extra return that the bank charges you, this is called as credit spread. The spread, the extra, in terms of compensating the bank for the risk that they are taking. So the spreads are higher when the bank think that the risk is higher. Okay, so Ganesh, you're absolutely right when you say that the equity prices going up is a healthy sign. But here's also a point, everybody. In finance, too much exuberance is never considered to be right. So sometimes you see, let's say in context of Adani, for example, okay, and by no standard, we want to make this debate a political debate. We are holding it purely from an academic standpoint. Over the last 3 years, if you see now 4 years, you see suddenly the stocks and market value of Adani going up, let's say by 3x. Now, a company of that size generally don't grow that fast. So there must be some iota of, you know, issue out there, but nobody noticed. So a one side and too rapid expansion in equity price also needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. So I would say steady increase in equity over a period of time is what is a healthy sign for capital market. Okay, real estate market, again, steady increase. You don't expect the house prices like these days. Okay, look at what's happening in Bangalore, Bombay, Hyderabad, Delhi, NCR. The prices have almost doubled in let's say 2 years. So doubling in 2 years essentially means a growth of roughly 40%, which is way above the ecosystem can handle. So real estate is absolutely going through, if not a bubble, but still a bubblet. We say that a smaller bubble is like a bubblet kind of a thing, and so on and so forth. So everybody, I see that now the group is placed well to introduce the main thing to the audience. Okay. Now, everybody, my next question is going to be, because we want to kind of delve into the the geopolitical factors, etc., etc. So I just want to kind of gauge your understanding, your awareness about. Can you name a few geopolitical issues over the last 1 to 3 years which have been capturing the news and the media share? Can does some name cross your mind? What geopolitical issue are you aware about? What countries, which two countries are fighting, if at all? Is there some kind of a disturbance at a global level? Which country is, you would find, always at the centerpiece of the whole debate? Fantastic. So, Ganesh, great answer. Okay, let's see if others are able to bring up more names. What are the common, names that you will hear over the last 1 to 2 years? And obviously, every country has an interest, everybody. So geopolitical typically is, is derived from geography and politics. So it's a cross-country issue by and large. So every country would like to protect their interest over the other. Okay. Uh, but when the issue becomes too large to affect other people as well, also, then it becomes worth discussing. Okay. So therefore, I would not like to unnecessarily bring the Kashmir issue between India and Pakistan here, although that's also the geopolitical thing. That's also an industry in itself. But that's not what I'm trying to say. Okay. Because the Kashmir issue doesn't really affect anybody else other than India and Pakistan to that extent. Okay. So great answers, Akanksha. Very nice answer. Israel and Palestine. Any other, everybody. So we have got two fantastic answers. Russia, Ukraine. Great job. Israel and Palestine. Uh, any other involving China? How can you keep China out of it? Um, Generally, you see, the the biggest bully of the room would be involved in every brawl that happens in the classroom. The biggest bullies, two, US and China. You would find generally, these two playing in it. Yes, absolutely. So Ganesh, while you are right in saying that, US has a tiff with China, but that's really not some kind of a specified geopolitical issue. They would play a silent game and an indirect game. Okay. So everybody, let me give up few names to you. The first, of course, as absolutely rightly pointed out by Akanksha, um, this whole thing of Israel and Hamas war. Well, as you are aware, that it started with a militant group in attacking the Israel population, civilians, and against which Israel has decided to take a very, very tough stand. The whole Gaza Strip, very small piece of land, had become a playground for testing all kind of ammunitions that Israel had. And here where people, by chance, I have to be very, very clear. We are not discussing who is right. The idea of this debate is not to bring in proprietary into the picture, what should happen, but we are just kind of discussing objectively what is happening out there. Okay. And of course, as we kind of go back, because what Palestine says that, Israel is responsible for all of that because they have taken larger share of the territory over the last 50 years than Jews were initially allocated when they were kind of, asked to go out of Europe and make a country and find a country of their own. So it kind of dates back like 50, 60, 70 years and perhaps even longer. The second, very famous is, you're absolutely, right, which have kind of bipolarized the whole world. Bipolarization means dividing the world into two sides. So Russia had China as a partner and Middle East as a partner, while Ukraine had the entire of the Europe and America also. And I'm, I'm so happy that, we are blessed to have a strong political leader where he was able to kind of take a balanced perspective and think of country before kind of taking a side. So, and we will talk about that when the issue of oil is going to be discussed. And the third issue, everybody, I was hoping somebody will say the China and Taiwan issue. It's been hanging over for a long time. Taiwan is an independent country. Okay, they hold their independent election. They have their independent prime minister. But China does not believe into the independence of Taiwan. They say sooner or later Taiwan has to come back to the mainland China. Okay, and therefore, it's the greed to kind of become bigger than what you actually are. Sometimes we find households also doing the same thing. No, I have for example, somebody has a ground floor, and then you would like to kind of create a hedge to occupy some common space and make it your own. You'll keep some, pots, etc., etc. So that's the encroachment that you're talking about at a household level. Same thing, same heuristic, same ego issues happen at the level of the countries as well. Okay, everybody. So the stage is set, and I am going to begin the discussion on the million dollar question. Says, how does any geopolitical conflict affect the capital market? People, no marks for guessing. Higher the geopolitical conflict, capital markets underperform. So the nature of the direction of relationship is very clear. It's inverse. Higher the geopolitical conflict, the more the disturbances, the capital markets obviously are going to underperform. My question is, what is the linkage? What's the chain? Why does it happen? To give you a perspective, while on 24th of February, that was a date of the year 22, Russia had attacked Ukraine. What actually Russian media says, they responded in self-defense. You see the perspective, the diplomacy? That happened on 24th of February. And Indian stock market went down by 5%. Well, we were not even invited to the party. Suddenly it went down. Why? Apple, world's most profitable firm or most valuable company, also kind of fluctuated by 6%, 7% on the same day. Why is it? So Kunal's making a point. Is it investor sentiment? Kunal, can you explain that a bit? What do you mean by investor sentiment? And Ganesh is making a point because investors typically flee the market. He's referring to the capital market in search of safer financial instruments. So somebody who is involved into, let's say, equity market trading, they want to buy the equity shares. The moment there is uncertainty, they want to avoid that. And therefore, that's called as flight to safety. Okay. So typically, Ganesh, that does not necessarily has to happen from equity to a safer instrument. Within equity also you see that happening from a small cap stock to a large cap. Okay, so there is a relativity that you can have it. For everybody, let me give everybody some kind of a let's say line of thought. Let's say example of Apple. Okay, now Apple has manufacturing, let's say, in 12 countries. It has, let's say, stores in almost every country with, uh, let's say, a government at play. So you can imagine every country has an iPhone buyer. So you can imagine, let's say, just for the namesake, let's put 120 countries has customers for Apple. And then you have different distribution network. You have hundreds and thousands of employees. They have raised money from different investors, which involves public, which involves bank. All of them have given money to Apple to be able to open up factories, manufacture iPhones, iPads, etc., and make a sale. Okay, so that's the whole bottom line. My question to you, everybody, if Russia attacks Ukraine, why should this company's equity stock go down? What do you think? What do you think is the reason for the capital market to start underperforming? What's in it? Kavita makes an important point. It affects the prices of the commodity. Kavita, does it increase the price of the commodity or decrease the price of the commodity? Increase the price of the commodity. Kavita, why does that happen? Kavita's point, let me, broad base, for her. Um, so what she means is that the steel or the aluminum or the plastic or the rubber that Apple must be buying in their production process, the price of those go up. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think that increase in commodity prices happen? Any idea? Ganesh's invasion of Ukraine. Come on, everybody. There is no right answer to it. We are all anyway extrapolating. We are all anyway experimenting. We are all anyway. So make sure that you make your presence feel. Um, Vijaya says supply falls. Very, very solid point, Vijaya. Vijaya, why does supply falls? Vijaya, excellent point. Why does supply falls? Swati is making a point. If war is happening, the production is interrupted and demand increases. Fantastic. So, Vijaya, you are complimented and supplemented by Swati's answer. People, the inflation means increase in the price of a particular good. Okay. That's what inflation basically means. Now, inflation, my bad, has two components to it, the demand side inflation, and the other one is a supply side inflation. Demand side inflation means that where supply is normal as it was, but now there's suddenly more number of customers coming to buy the same quantity. So there is like a price auction. You see the auction typically, that limited quantity and the buyers are more. So indirectly, it's a price auction where the demand suddenly goes up. Why will demand go up? Well, multiple factors. The income levels are going up, the sentiments is very positive, etc., etc. So suddenly you see the house prices going up. Why? Because after COVID, everybody realized they needed bigger houses, and anybody who is into 2 BHK is shifting to 3 BHK, 3 BHK to 4 BHK, and likewise. So that's the demand side inflation. In case of geopolitical issue, it's actually the supply side inflation that Vijaya had mentioned. Supply side inflation typically means that with the same normal demand as before, suddenly the quantity that was being supplied by the producers goes down. And it goes down drastically. It's not a temporary blip. It's not a hoarding being done by somebody else. It's actually a disruption. So formally, we call it, disrupted supply chains. So imagine a situation. Has anybody of you heard about the Red Sea the transport and the carriageway challenges these days? The problem that is happening. A major share of the world's export, obviously by vessels, by sea, passes through Red Sea. It's a very, very important link, okay, between, let's say, if I may say, the west side of the world and the east side of the world. And now the Houthi militants, well, whether you call it rebels, what US call them is militant, have started to bomb vessels going through, because again, it's a fallout of the Israel, Hamas war, which then became Israel-Palestine war, and now has become Israel-Iran war. So different militant groups have joined the whole thing, and now they're even bombing the food supplies. So to control that, can you imagine that? Imagine if somebody has to go from point A to point B, and this channel is now not allowed. They have to kind of go through the Cape of Africa by spending obviously much, much, much longer time. But not only that, the costs have gone up by 4x. So from the seller's point of view, it's no longer profitable to sell the goods till the time the direct link from point A and B is established. That direct link is Red Sea. Imagine they've also started to bomb the perishables, which means perishables is a good which has a certain life. And when you take too long a time, an oil can survive, a consumer durable can survive, but typically a perishable good will not. So good, generally, when they reach the point B, they are worthless. So the seller side of the whole game is now withdrawing. That's a sell side inflation. So great point, Vijay, out there. And Swati, a great point. Kunal, in the meantime, has also explained that uh, yeah, so okay, so Kunal is making a different point. Kunal was saying that, India was getting oil from Russia at a lower price, etc., etc., and that's where you kind of came in. So everybody, I want you to kind of think more. I want you to think more. Uh, let us say, think in the sense. Let me give you more food for thought. Do you think Apple will be comfortable to open up a new factory, let's say in India, if those geopolitical disturbances continue? A yes or a no? What do you think, everybody? Do you think Apple will feel comfortable to open up a factory in India? Well, you see, there is a divided opinion. Ganesh Rimjim says yes, but Tanuj, uh, and Vijaya says no, then again there is a support from Vidya and Litika coming in terms of yes. Now, everybody, that's the relativity which is coming at play. But in general, think about it. If there is too much disturbance all around, generally the businesses don't expand. See, it's a hard earned money. Remember, Apple does not have that money of their own, they are borrowing it from a bank. So if the factory fails, then how would be the repayment made? So Apple is going to play conservative out there. That's called as the business confidence. No business likes uncertainty, and that's been one of the major issues initially between 2017 to 20, where the lot of businesses in India did not invest because they thought that Modi government was changing the policies too frequently, which Modi government realized, and then later on it became a little more streamlined. That's called as business uncertainty. I don't know what to do. India automobile sector was largely a petrol sector, but then government suddenly said, here is a um, subsidies on diesel. So diesel prices were much lower. At a particular point in time, diesel was 50% of the cost of the petrol. So all automobile manufacturer started to make diesel engines, and at one point in time, diesel cars were 25%. Suddenly, government withdrew the diesel subsidy. Today, diesel and petrol prices are almost equal, and therefore the diesel cars are not selling anymore. So today diesel is like less than 5% of the whole thing. So you see, somebody who is putting a factory, somebody like Honda, who has never made a diesel engine in any country globally, had to do it everything from scratch. In 5 years they find that every of that effort has gone down the drain. So that kind of uncertain environment nobody likes. Geopolitical disturbances create a lot of uncertainty out there. Okay, so while you're right in saying that, a safer country, and thank God we are a safer country now, Apple might feel safe, but generally with all this, conundrum happening around, the safety is much lower. Tell me something more. Tell me something more. Um, let's see, this whole debate around Russia Ukraine. Okay, and I want you to go back a year. Okay, today everybody has forgotten about Russia Ukraine, although they are like two kids playing in one corner of the room, while the other group carries on with their work. But you see, a year ago there was so much uncertainty. The oil suddenly had shot up. Why was oil going up in price? What Russia Ukraine had to do with oil? Any idea, anybody? Why was oil prices going up suddenly? Russia had attacked Ukraine. Ukraine was a very small country. Ukraine does not have any oil reserves. Why suddenly the oil prices started to go up? Any idea, anybody? You've been fabulous audience, let me tell you. Irrespective of what you answer for this, but you have been a fabulous audience so far. The polarization is one of the reasons for that. While everybody was picking up sides, Middle East joined the Russian side. And therefore, Middle East is where the OPEC oil producing and exporting countries. And they said that we are going to cut back the output, or we are not going to sell the output to the US, etc., etc. And then again, there was some kind of the production constraint that started to happen along with the geopolitical disturbances. And don't forget, Russia is also one of the producers of oil. They sell major requirements for Europe. And that winter, the year 22, where the war has broken out, Europe had suffered highest prices for energy, because you see they are very cold countries, so the requirement for heating is much larger than their requirement, unlike India, where we generally need more ACs and less geysers and heaters. So it's quite opposite during winter. So in last 40 years they've never experienced that kind of an inflation. So that's perhaps one of the reasons why suddenly the oil prices go. And oil is a basic commodity. If oil goes up, every other thing goes up. If your diesel prices are up, your petrol prices are up, you can imagine the transport and cargo and logistics and everything becomes so expensive. So something that was being supplied at an X rupees suddenly becomes X plus Y because of the oil, and so on and so forth. So everybody, so far you've been doing a fabulous job. My question to you now, and after that, we'll try and go towards the wrap up of the whole thing, is that in case you are in a country where there is some kind of a geopolitical conflict, let's say visualize yourself being in Israel right now. Okay, and by any standard and every standard, Israel, I don't think is going to lose the war. Although I'm not a political analyst, but I don't think they're going to lose the war because they're being backed by European forces and American forces, etc. I don't know who's going to be the winner. Actually, in war, nobody is a winner because everybody is losing. Okay, the manpower, etc. But Israel is not going to lose it for sure. Um, do you feel like that somebody in Israel will be excited about buying an iPhone? Do you think so? Somebody in Israel right now, will that fellow be excited, looking forward to buy an iPhone or an iPad? Yes or a no? Tanut says no. Vidya says no. Everybody consistently. People, this is what you are trying to decode as consumer confidence or a consumer sentiment. There is a feel bad factor out there. You don't feel like spending. So, therefore, you are like cutting back on your purchase. What is the signal for Apple? That the sales of Apple is going to come down. Israel or any country for that matter, if it occupies X% of the total sale, this X is about to go down. Jindal Stainless Steel, a company, homegrown country for India, says that my export target will not be met because of the whole export disruptions, etc., the Red Sea problem, the demand going down. Everywhere there is bombing, and they feel like that we'll not be able to do this. So you see, there is no war with India. There is no war in India, but an Indian firm can feel the impact. The moment Jindal Stainless Steel has given the statement, the capital market responded negatively and the stock price went down. So you see, people, geopolitical conflicts are trying to, impact the capital markets in a very, very negative way. Let me ask you another question. Okay, let me ask: if Apple announces that during the next year, let's say 2024, because of geopolitical issue, they think that their profits might not grow, what do you think will be the reaction of the banks which have given loan to Apple? Will the banks feel happy or sad on looking and understanding this news? Apple is a customer for the bank, and the customer announces that they are going to have a tough time going ahead. You see, that is what happens in the lending market. The moment the actual going gets very tough, suddenly you find every nut and bolt uh, wanting much more lubrication, and that's not here. So the machinery is not working smoothly, and that's what happens, which we call as the funding deadlock. While you need the funding the maximum, the lender is never going to give you. And sometimes in loose terms, we say the bank always lend to those people who don't need the money. But you see, that's on the lighter note. But seriously, when you actually need the money, because imagine if Apple was able to sell, let's say, hundreds and thousands of iPhone like every year, they don't need money from the bank. They need the money from the bank only while their normal sales are not happening. What to do? And on top of it, the bank is now even stricter in measuring Apple, and therefore they're saying no to Apple. So what I'm trying to say is, if the same thing can happen with a giant company like Apple, you can imagine what might happen to the all other smaller players, SMEs, small and medium enterprises, etc., etc. So it's a very, very tough situation, everybody. So great discussion. Allow me to wrap it up in the next 5 minutes. All right. So and I can't thank everybody enough for bringing such vibrant questions and such vibrant answers. So everybody, just for the sake of kind of you know concluding in an organized fashion, although the points that you're mentioning are absolutely fantastic. The impact can be divided into three parts: the economic, diplomatic, and social. Okay, these words may not tell you much more. Let me decode each one of them. Economic impact, that's what we were discussing. The business part of it, how does a business react to it? How would an Apple react to it? You see, the moment there are uncertainties, the business confidence will go down. The desire for Apple to grow, open up a new factory, may not be there as much. The funding becomes a challenge. The cost of operations will increase. The profits will come down, and Apple perhaps may delay the plan of opening up a factory. Who knows? Tesla Motors has been talking about entering India for a long time now. They said that earlier they're going to set up a factory in Bangalore. Now they're setting up a factory in Gujarat, but nothing has moved as much. Who knows? It's the geopolitical uncertainty that's playing on their mind. And then Vijay, I mentioned a brilliant point of supply chain that, the moment you have disrupted supply chain, COVID was one another example, a classic example for disrupted supply chains, although that wasn't geopolitical, according to me. But according to some political analyst, it was a conspiracy, and obviously it's a conspiracy theory. Okay. Don't quote us outside this context. They said that it was a war, it's a biological war that China has initiated against the rest of the world. So if you think of that, then that COVID also becomes a geopolitical uncertainty, and that becomes a classic example for a disrupted supply chain. The factories were shut, the countries were shut, complete shutdown. There was nobody doing it. So imagine the producer has produced the goods and the consumers are waiting for it, but the transporter is not ready because transporter is of a country where the shutdown prevails. So the goods are ready, the consumers are waiting, but the transport will not happen. So you imagine this supply chain disruption is so difficult. And then the iPhone example that you had mentioned, nobody is looking up to buy an iPhone in Israel because the consumer spending, anything that is discretionary, gets postponed. All luxury spending and all of that gets down. Then this is where you have to graduate everybody up, and think of it as a diplomatic impact. How two countries look at each other. It's not a very transactional relationship. When Mr. Modi goes out in Middle East and makes a national presence, it's a diplomatic presence. They are forging some ties, which means they are trying to engage into some trade agreements, longer term relationship. That's called as international relationships, not only for goods and services, but in terms of flow of money as well. The moment there is a disruption out there, all of that goes for a toss. And particularly for countries, weaker countries, let's say Vietnam, Thailand, to some extent India, we were largely dependent on foreign flow of funds. 10 years ago, I don't know whether you were in the peak of your learning age, you must be in school at that time. Um, there was a very common news. Indian stock market has fallen. What happened? US funds have pulled out money. Oh, Indian stock market is growing. What happened? US have suddenly pumped in money. So you see, everything Indian stock market was doing, happy or sad, was dependent upon the US. Because the weaker countries need foreign flow of funds to be able to grow. Okay, the wealth is not as much. The number of millionaires and billionaires are India are very, very few. And if you look at the population as a percentage, it's far, far below the global average. So what I'm trying to get to is you need rich, wealthy country partners to help you grow. Okay. Those things go for a toss in a big way. FDI means somebody actually coming to your country and opening up plants like Ford Motor did in Chennai. That's going to go down. FII means somebody buying the stocks and bonds of your firms that are operating, like SoftBank has bought in shares of Oyo Hotel. So that's FII. Foreign institutional investors, all of those things are going to go down. Okay, so that's the diplomatic part. And think of it, the security concern, major thing. China spends, why should I take example of China? Let's take example of India. India's spend on infrastructure is about 3%. Okay, so let's say 3 out of every 100 is spent on infrastructure, like building roadways, ports, etc. 2% is on defense. Imagine if the defense was not to be done, everything was hunky-dory, we had good neighbors, everything, then the roads, the number of roads that you're building, let's say if they were 3 right now, you would be able to build 5 roads. You can channelize the same amount that you're wasting, let me use the word, on defense and other, ammunitions and security concerns. You can put it to a much better use. Imagine you are bringing 30 crore people out of poverty. Then you would be able to bring 50 crore people out of poverty. It's all about channelizing the money that you have, the rationing of the capital. And therefore, to my mind, the budget that a country spends on defense is an utter wastage. You're just doing it so that you can protect yourself. Why there is a need to protect yourself? Because of the geopolitical disruption. Very, very major impact. Okay, and the last is the most underestimated one to my mind, and it is the deepest cut, which is going to take the longest time to heal. It's the impact on the people. It's the impact on the culture. Look at Afghanistan. It is absolutely a barren land. For 20 years, US and Russia have played an ammunition game out there in different forms for different reasons, and look what have they done to the country. The same thing is happening with Ukraine. I mean, do you think the country is now livable after 2 years of different points of devastations? Very few parts of the capital Kiev is left. Every now and then, this building is bombed, that building is bombed. So do you think it's possible? Imagine a nice city where some buildings in between are bombed. So it takes like one full generation, 25 years, 30 years to bring the country back on track. Look at the people out there. You buy a house by spending 20 years of your saving, and in a day it's gone. That means somebody is setting you back 20 years. What does that mean? Much easily said, but you have to feel the pain. For next 20 years, you get up every day, go for work in order to basically get what you had already earned once. So it's a very, very painful exercise in the whole thing. The moment that happens, the employment drops, income level drops, the 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 discretionary spending goes out of the town. The country's GDP is almost at a Hindu rate of 2 to 3%. It's not a good sign for capital market all throughout. Okay, so coming back and kind of just closing the whole thing, what do you think you and I, as business managers, need to do? Can you stop this geopolitical conflicts from happening? Answer is a very big no. As long as there are two people in the room, there will be politics. As long as there are more than one country in the world, there will be some geopolitical issues. But therefore, what should businesses do? They should hire people with few skill set, and that is very clear to international firms and even firms in India or let's say abroad, which are not even having international exposure. Good firms across sector have these 4 5 points in mind while they're recruiting people. Okay, they want people to have strong fundamentals in terms of the logics to link point A to point B. So like we did an exercise over the last 40 minutes to try and link a geopolitical disruption as an external factor and try and link it to the capital market. And one of the use case that we did was an Apple case study. Okay, so that's a strong fundamental. If that happens, then what? So if and then analysis needs to be very, very strong for all the participants of the business, managers and etc. Second is a strategic thinking, everybody. You cannot be transactional. You cannot go transaction by transaction. You need to have a very, very big plan. You need to have a very solid business, mindset. You need to have some kind of an interconnected thinking, which kind link different processes out together. Because disruption in just one part can stop the whole thing. Just to share in over 20 seconds that when I was in Maruti for 2005 to 9, and during that time, the production line had halted only once because the tires weren't coming up. Okay, I think Chennai had some floods or some problem with the tire manufacturer out there. Um, so can you imagine that a car has 16,000 components? 15,999 components were there in the plant. We could not ship out even one single car because of one ingredient, which is the tire. So what I'm trying to get to is that everything is so interlinked. You can't be transactional and very myopic in your thinking. You need to have that strategic thinking. And exposure has to be global. You need to look at what's happening outside of your country. The more you read, the more you know, the more you're aware about these things, the better your decisions and more generalized your decisions are going to be. Then it's very important to figure out what risks are, which risks to avoid, which risks to take on and explore, and which risk to exploit. Now, there is a whole science of risk management. That's the risk way of looking at things. Okay, while we are not saying that people who look at the business from a risk point of view are negative people. We are not saying they're conservative people. All we are trying to say is that while you are jumping off the plane on a skydiving, make sure that you're wearing a parachute and make sure that the parachute is within the expiry time. Okay, that's the whole risk management thing. You should definitely take. So otherwise, the point of earning return is not going to be there. But in the let's say, let's not buy cryptocurrencies just like that. You need to research well. Let's not buy a particular company stock just like that. Let's not open up a factory just for the heck of it. Let's do proper research. That's what risk management attitude means. And then it's the agility. This reminds me, the last point reminds me of my interaction with a lot of companies in Bombay in the year 2017, much before COVID, where the companies in Bombay, like, and obviously we, as part of the finance delegation, we were meeting the banks and mutual funds, etc. They told the B schools, don't unnecessarily create extra specializations. They said, make your workforce flexible. The problem that B schools, the problems the companies are facing is that the students come up and they say that we are not liking the profile because this is not what we had in mind. Then, the companies were actually putting their heart out and they were saying that the world is so dynamic. We also don't know what we'll be doing in 3 years. So how can we create a very specific job description? All we want is a fellow who is strong in fundamentals and he is willing to adapt. If we are hiring him for wealth management, for example, in a bank, there's a possibility we might ask him to sell an insurance, but there's a possibility we might ask him to do some other product. Let's not be rigid. Be very, very flexible. The agility is super, super important. Okay. And with these, I bring this whole discussion to an end. Uh, 1 hour has gone like blink of an eye, and I can only thank all of you for creating this kind of such an exciting, such an enriching discussion, to that extent. So Ganesh, thank you very much. You've been fantastic. Along with Litika, Tanuj, Akanksha, Kavita, Darshan. I mean, I can just go on and on. Kunal, Rimjim, everybody, fabulous discussion. And so over to you, Srishti. I can just go on and on. It's very difficult to kind of come out of this whole thing. Um, but please, the floor is open to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ankur. This was a very, very engaging masterclass. I was completely involved throughout. And and thank you so much, everyone, for engaging with us, for sharing your comments, your answers, and everything. Um, Very quickly, we have upcoming masterclasses lined up. In so we have a masterclass lined up in Feb. It's about AI essentials for managers. We will be very happy to send out more details. I've just shared the a Google form in over chat. I'll just reshare it here again. Sorry, that's the admissions form. I'll just reshare again. So if you can fill that up, we will share the details of our upcoming masterclasses with you on mail. Really excited to have you here again. And BSM's admissions are open, applications are open. If you think this was valuable for you, this is just a snippet. There's so much more that can happen in our course. Uncle will be teaching corporate finance at BSM. The program starts on 29th of July. Details you can find on our website. I've just shared the link. If you have any questions, you can share them in the chat box now, and I'll be happy to answer. If you'd like to call us, you can just click on the link that I've shared, and you'll have a number. You can also see the number projected on the screen here. Happy to answer your questions. If anyone has any BSM related questions, they can hang back in the room and post their questions here in the chat box. And I'm here for a bit, for a couple of more minutes, and I can take some questions. Thank you, Ankur. I think you can stop projecting your
Okay,
screen. Yeah, thanks
sure.
so much.
Thank you very
If
much,
anyone has
Srishti.
any questions, thank you so much, Ankur. I'm going to stick around for a couple of minutes in case anyone has any questions.
Sure,
And Ankur, we can also share your LinkedIn, in fact, in the chat
sure,
box for
absolutely.
everyone, for people to see. Just let me quickly fetch that. Yeah. In case you don't have any questions, you can feel free to drop out. But if anyone does have questions, you can leave your questions in the chat box for me. And I'm just posting Ankur's LinkedIn page so you can know more about him and visit his profile.
All right then, Srishti. So I'll
Yeah,
take your leave, and
sure. Absolutely.
I wish you all the very best. I'm sure there
Thank
is
you.
much greater excitement around Badruka, and looking forward to
Absolutely.
a fantastic season with you.
We look forward to having you at BSM very, very soon. Thank you, Uncle. It was a wonderful masterclass. Absolutely loved it.
Thanks, Srishti. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye. Here is Uncle's LinkedIn for everyone. Anyway, thank you so much.